So let's look at today's victim. This is my Craftsman's pressure washer. It's only about 3 summers old, and every summer I use it about once or twice, and then I stuff it in the garage and promptly forget about it. And what that does is that lets that nasty ethanol gas we have here sit and coagulate in the carburetor for the next several months until I decide I need it again. And of course I always want it to immediately fire up and do the work that I want it to do, which is usually just pressure washing my deck and my driveway, parts of my house. But without fail, every single time when I go to start it, it don't start. You'd think I'd have the common sense to drain the frickin' gas before I put it away, but why do that then when I can hassle with it all now, right? All right. So we're going to be using a few simple tools, a simple little ratchet set, a bunch of attachments, nothing super fancy, a screwdriver. These are typically not rocket science. The hardest part is getting into them and getting all of the linkage and everything disconnected. Now, my channel is just to help guide you along. You might learn something, you might not learn something. So this is not the word of God. This is just me, an idiot in his garage, fixing this piece of crap. So, the first thing we're going to do is pop off the cover there. That's the air filter right there. We're going to pull that out. And now if we look in there, we see we've got some screws. Now these geniuses, in their infinite wisdom, couldn't use the same size screws on everything. So you're going to have a couple of different ends, a couple of different sizes. We're going to get this guy, we're going to get this guy, and this guy right here. And please make sure your toolbox is as messy as mine, or this simply doesn't work. All right. Now, if you notice, I had to use a pair of vice grips to shut the fuel off. There is no pedcock. There's no way to shut the fuel off. So, you've got to clamp the fuel hose off, or you're going to wear most of it when you extract the carburetor. Wrong size. Be forewarned, every time you go to do this, you're always going to grab the wrong size first. That's just how it works. Now, yeah, these are loose because I already started pulling this apart, but I thought it might be a fun video to do on my Belligerent Mechanics channel. Now, every now and then, I'm going to have to bleep some things out. I think just like any home mechanic, I'm going to go through Tourette-style cussing fits every now and then when I see things that appall me or just generally piss me off. You know, I think on some of these machines, they make this stuff way harder than it has to be. Way more difficult. So, get that screw out. Get the other screw out. Total of 4 screws on this backing plate. Alright, so that's off there. You'll notice in here there's a crankcase vent. That hose right there, that's supposed to go right on that nipple right there. I don't think it ever lands back on there. In fact, I think it just floats around in the back there, spraying oil on everything as you're running it. Another brilliant design. Oh, and look at that. A piece of crap plastic carburetor. Plastic carburetor. Let that soak in for a minute. Some of you old school guys will be going, that's completely appalling. Why would you put a plastic carburetor on an air-cooled engine that gets extremely hot whenever it runs? Well, I'll tell you why. Because they're cheap bastards. They're trying to hit a price point. They're trying to sell it at a budget price, and that's one of the ways they do it. All right. So the next thing you might notice is a crappy little spring. You see all these little bells and whistles in here? Yeah, these are all just designed to piss you off. You know, there's definitely easier ways to make these things happen. And also, like most things I work on around my house, I have to go track my tools down because my wife and kids will commandeer them and use them for whatever else is going on in the house. It's usually something I'm trying to ignore because I don't want to get roped into it. So I got the hose clamped off. There's no fuel dumping out. That's a good sign. Alright, now we got to get the linkages off. And if you think they're a pain to get off, wait till you try to put them back on. These things are a complete SOB. There we go. One off and two off. And they all fall out of the way. Just like that. And that's our carburetor. So as I said, I already pulled this off, but I didn't actually completely remove it and start the clean out process. So there's only one screw in the bowl right now. I didn't bother putting the other one in. The carb is empty. Okay. Dooby-dooby-doo. I'm not so sure I like my lighting in this direction. That's a little better. Somewhat. I always put down my shop towels in case there's any residual fuel to dump out. It doesn't just dump out all over my toolbox. So all we're going to do is pop the float bowl off, and we're just going to blow the circuits clear. Maybe get some carburetor cleaner down in there. Again, it's usually just gum from the fuel sitting in the carburetor over the winter. So there's our float bowl. It's super easy to take off. You just pop that little pin out right there. Let's see here. Get a pair of needle nose in here. Slide that out if you can. This one looks like you can just press it straight in, but I hate doing that because sometimes those little tabs just break off. There we go. Got the little pin out. We've got the float bowl. Now we got the float bowl out. And then, lo and behold, when we look down in there, there's the needle, or excuse me, there's the fuel valve that was laying inside. It must have fallen out at some point from all the vibration, but that's going to have to slip back into its carrier like that so that it can rest like this. That's how it's going to hang in there. Ba-da-bum. Okay, so now we're going to take the carbo parts cleaner here, shoot a little bit in there, try to aim it a good direction away. Oh, right in the eye. God dang it, son of a piece of crap. Alright, shoot another one right down the main. Oh yeah, that one went through. That's what I'm talking about. That's really it. There is nothing to these carburetors. They are so dirt simple. But again, they're made out of plastic. So they distort. They get all funky. The venturis don't stay true anymore. The butterflies can't seal perfectly anymore. I mean, it's just really crap. They used to put a decent aluminum bodied carb on. And of course, I don't remember what the cost of this thing was. Maybe $400 or $500. So, any place, if they can save 3 cents, that's a higher profit margin. And this is a 2800 PSI pressure washer. air compressor. And we'll just let that little carburetor sit there and think about what it's done. I find that it helps if I berate the equipment, gives it time to reflect on all of its misgivings and the chaos and havoc it has caused me. And oddly enough, at the end of the day, I somehow feel better. I'm not sure how or why, but it does work. So there's the drain plug for the carburetor for the float bowl. Before you put this thing away for the winter, crack that open and let the fuel drain out. But again, if you, oh look, what did I tell you? First one you grab is going to be wrong. I'm going to hate it when I'm right. What size is that? Yeah, this was necessary. See this? Giant Allen head for this little piece of crap plastic. And it's stuck. Of course it's stuck. Why wouldn't it be stuck? Okay. It's plastic. I'm not going to push the issue. Odds are pretty good I'm going to break something or strip it out. Alright, so now to blow this thing out. Okay, so the oil worked on getting the O-ring greased up so I could get it back in. Now we just put the screws back on. Like that. Tighten them equally. That way we're sure it makes a good seat. We hope. This helps if I put it in the right side. Snug, but not too over tightened. Remember, it is a plastic housing, and it'll easily strip the threads out. Alright, fully assembled, back in order. Next, we get to reinstall it back on the engine. There is nothing that clamps the Venturi onto the motor. It just basically has a little O-ring on there. It's kind of a slip fit. It just slips on, and that's it. There's no hard mounting to the motor of the carburetor. Alright. So that's what it looks like on the engine. Right here. And I can't point and hold my flashlight. That big hole right in the center, that's where the carburetor is going to slip right onto. And then of course that is the pressure case ventilator. It's supposed to, it's part of emissions. It feeds it back into the air filter housing, so that none of those gases go out into the atmosphere. It's supposed to be sucked back in and the motor burns it. Alright, now we'll put the carb back on. Alright, so I opened up the door to try to let more light in here to get a better view. It's really hot here today, unusually hot, so I've been working with the garage closed up, trying to stay a little cooler before I go out there and run this thing. Okay, so now we just have to remember where our linkage went. It's kind of straightforward by the size of the holes in the armatures here. This one's the big one, this one's the little one, and if you remember how I took this off, I have to kind of contort it quite a bit like this. and then try to line it up with the linkage ends. And this is usually where the cussing starts. Oh, but looky there, that one went in all on its own. Pretty handy. And now the other one on the throttle. Come on, get in there. Yeah, it's kind of funky. I'm sure there's better small engine mechanics out there that know the quick way to do this, but I am not that one. But I got them all back together. Once they're back in place, we're just gonna slide the carburetor back on that intake pipe back there. Come on, get on there. And you can kind of feel it when it seats. It gets firm. So it is now seated. I'm gonna make sure we get the fuel pipe on. Not easy to do when the hose is so short. Come on, come on. Come on. You can do it. Maximum effort. Come on, let's go. Get on that. Damn it. Ah, crap. Alright, take the damn car back off, of course. Let's get it out here, maybe where we can twist it a little bit. Get that hose on there. There it is. And I didn't undo my linkage. Oh, yes. Oh, that's better. Alright, slide that back on there. Slide that back on the pipe. Get there. Nice and firm now. Yep, nice and firm. Good, good. Now, I'm going to put the backing plate back on. And drop the screws. Try to blow some of the pine needles out of there. Got a pine tree in the backyard. We can go ahead and take the damn fuel shut-off valve. Take that off. And we should be getting flow into the carburetor already. It's just gravity feed from the tank. Get the clamp back over on it. And of course there are better pliers to do that with too, but these work pretty good because I'm sure mine are buried under the kitchen sink somewhere. My good ones. Why does everybody always want my good tools? Huh? Who am I kidding? I don't have any good tools. Alright, there's a nice little index tab there, another one there. And now you need the hands of a 5-year-old to get back in here and get these screws started. I need to call one of my grandkids over. Now, if I had a magnet on my driver, this wouldn't be so hard, but I don't. I do not have a magnet in it. So, I've got to do it the old-fashioned way. Argue with it. Come on, get started. Come on, get in there. Well, it's kind of started. Now it's time for the driver. Remember, start with the wrong size first. Now that we got that out of the way, we'll put the correct size on. See what I mean? It flops around, and that stupid pressure case pipe just does not fit on the back. Where the crap. And there's no clamp or spring clamp of any form to hold it on either. So it's one of those connections we call hope. It's hanging on by hope and hope alone, but definitely not sound engineering. Come on, get in there. I know you want to, and maybe you don't. What am I, misaligned? Oh, of course I'm misaligned. Why? Because it's plastic and it's distorted and it doesn't fit the original mount anymore. That's just fantastic. See, I gotta pull it in to make it fit. Oh, you piece of crap. Unbelievable. Yep, I got an index point there, so I don't have a choice. That's where it has to go. So, sometimes if you pull them out a little bit, you can get a thread or two on and then kind of use that. Use the bolt as the lever to get it over. And make sure you drop it a few more times. No operation will be complete without chasing the screws around the floor. Come on now, get in there. Get in there. This is the problem with plastic parts on everything. None of these plastics hold their shape. They get hot, they shrink, they swell. And when do you run most pressure washers? In the summer, when it's the hottest. Yep, that's good stuff. Alright, so I got that. Now my air filter looks like it's still in good order, so I'm not going to change that out. This pressure washer probably has a grand total of 5 hours of runtime on it. My deck is very small, so doesn't need a whole lot. My driveway's a little big, but it's still just a 2-car driveway. I do have another pine needle. Got to make sure I get a few of those in everything here in the Oregon forests. Alright, so I got 2 more screws down in here that I got to line up, and that carburetor is kind of got to be able to wiggle around behind it a little bit for them to do that. So of course I already tightened the other screws, which I should not have done. Loosen them up a little bit like that, so things can kind of wiggle and slide around. Yes, like this. Now, get those screws. Okay. Sometimes what I do is I put the screws in the outer case, and then of course I forget and I look all over the toolbox for them. And there they are. And we got to get these threaded in there. Yeah, I'm sure Craftsman's going to call me any day now. I want to do an endorsement deal. Ah, crap. Hey, let's find the biggest moron we can get a hold of. Good and snug. Good and snug. See, all these different plastic parts, they're going to warp in different ways. And eventually, none of them fit each other anymore. Yes. Good. Okay. All in now. Everything's firm, secure, fuel, good, good. Air cleaner. Good. And now the last, another plastic part, the plastic cover. Should just snip in like that. Incidentally, this little thing you see right here, that's the fuel vent, or the tank vent. They just vent it right into the intake there. Another fine emission product brought to you. See, just a nipple. It's got a hole. It's just venting the fuel tank. Crazy. Alright. Okay. Get the cover back on. Snapped in place. Ta-da! Okay, so now when you're doing this, be sure to not pick up your tools so you can step on them when you're trying to do everything else. Just adds to the fun. I didn't mean that literally. You go tripping over your tools and bust your head. Don't call me. Okay. So, now we got it all back together. There it sits. Now, another bad part about this is there is no prime on this carburetor, meaning if the gas tends to evaporate out of it, you can't prime the carburetor to inject a little fuel into the venturi to help you get it started, kind of like a choke. And there's no choke either. Nope. You get what you get and hope that it starts for you. So after all that, the float. Okay. So after a day of pull starting, I finally get it going. I had to put a new spark plug in it too. Full disclosure, I did use some ether here and there, and I did have to take the float bowl back off again, but let's see if it's going to run this time. Okay, so like I said, I spent a couple of hours out there pull starting this little monster. It wouldn't light off right away. I think I still had some gas in the tank. That was still the old gas, so I ended up pumping all that out, putting in some brand new gas. I did pull the float bowl back off while it was still on. If you see down here, you can actually get to the screws just to remove the float bowl. But all you can do when you do that is just simply ensure that the float valve is operating and that it's allowing fuel to flow into the bowl. When I would start it, it would run for a second or two and then die. And that was the best I could get it to do. And so I replaced the fuel completely. I mean, I sucked the whole tank out. I got a neat little pump. And I got all the fuel out of it. And I pulled the lines, made sure it was drained completely out. Pulled the bowl, made sure it was drained completely out of any bad gas. And then, of course, I did take and remove that spark plug right up in there. I did not replace it. I didn't have a replacement for it, even though I usually would, just because I got spark plugs for all kinds of different engines, motorcycles mostly. So what I do is if I don't have a replacement plug, I'll pull the old plug, I'll bring it in the garage, I'll wire wheel the electrode off really good, the threads and everything, and then I'll take and I'll use a carburetor cleaner and I'll really spray it up in there good and really get the grime out of it, you know, anything that's going to cause resistance so it's not getting a good current flow. And yeah, lo and behold, after I did all that, put it all back together, boom, she lit off on the first try. And so she was doing good after that. Pressure washed the whole deck already. And now I'm trying to think of other things to do with it so it doesn't sit idle too much this summer. But I hope you found some of that informative. These new, you know, small engine machines like this, I think they're kind of funky in that, you know, they're trying to do too much as far as I'm concerned. And by doing it, they overcomplicate a really simple thing. First example would be right there. I don't know if you can read that or not, but it says no prime, no choke. So you can't manually do that, even if you wanted to. And then there's another one. Never change the oil. Just check and add. And I don't know about you, but I don't know of any oil that lasts the lifetime of a machine, especially one like this that, you know, that Briggs & Stratton motor in there is, hell, I think it's based on the same original design that was made, what, 80 years ago, 90 years ago? So I'm pretty sure, I know metallurgy's changed a little bit, but oil is still going to break down. But at any rate, I got all my work done. I didn't lose my temper too many times. I didn't go to any really harsh cussing fits. I did tell it what I thought about it several times. It needed that. You got to do that. Let it know. But otherwise, my job is done. Hope you found some of that entertaining, if not informative. Take it easy.